Thank you for your talks.
Yeah, with pleasure. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, something coming up where I thought, okay, probably I ask you
Mm.
about it. I was last weekend on a workshop seminar of psychotherapy, and it was about setting borders or setting boundaries. And what comes up was there was a heavy reaction, more or less, when I have to set a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And on one side, I'm a long or a longer time now in non-duality, and I understand there's no boundary, more or less, because there's no person. And on the other side, there is this felt sense, really strong contraction within the body when people cross boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was all over the place in my body. And I, after the workshop or so, I sat on my bike and ride home. Regular exercise helps a little bit, but even that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really astonished, more or less, what's going on there.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, isn't it amazing doing all these deep dives into the body? Yeah, totally. So, more than likely, what's going on in that situation um, is that you're becoming energetically aware on the bodily level that you haven't been erecting your boundaries in the correct place. And that one of the reasons potentially that you don't is because of fear of that. And again, that will go back more than likely to childhood, where with your primary caregivers, if you erected strong boundaries with them, then it created a lot of maybe chaos or fear or anger. And so, therefore, your response was to maybe either let people cross your boundaries or pretend to yourself that you don't have boundaries. You know, there's lots of different responses we have in that situation. So the child isn't able to put up a boundary with the parent, and so, or the parent don't teach the child boundaries. So therefore the child begins to ignore it and deny it to itself, because we always try to erect stories about ourselves, like create stories about ourselves. So we then start telling ourselves an opposite story of that. So then it just becomes a suppressed feeling in the body. So when someone's crossing your boundary, your body tenses up and there is discomfort and fear and chaos, but there is a suppression of that into the body because it feels too risky for you to look at it, to do something about it. So it's all about those first 5 or 6 years of life, more than likely. It is also genetic to an extent as well, so it'll be about your family line, like ancestors, and that's where you can get into like past life ideas. Like the way in which your grandparents treated your parents, and then your great-grandparents treated your grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, and then that becomes the genetic, what we'd call genetic line, or like past lives, which is taught to you and bred into you. And then you've actually got your conditioned response in those first few years of life. And a lot of our parents, you know, I think you're roughly the same age as me, a lot of our parents were brought up in an era where psychology wasn't talked about. So they had no consciousness of their own boundaries. They had no consciousness of how to teach a kid about boundaries. You know, maybe they didn't even know that that word meant boundaries. Most of us had mothers which were socially pressurized into being a mother. Like, they didn't, like, not saying that women don't naturally want to be a mother, but it's kind of like they didn't really have an option. They didn't really have a choice, you know. That was just what they were expected to do. Like our mothers of our generation, you know, my mum was born in 43.
Yeah, because what I recognize during a regular week, more or less, that um, during the whole week, more or less, stress comes up because all the time, more or less, boundaries gets crossed.
Hmm.
Because to deal with environment, more or less, there is complete um, bodily reaction, more or less, when boundaries are
Mm. Yeah,
crossed.
totally. Yeah. And then it goes into stress, and then it goes into your nervous system. And then that's what creates, the body becoming exhausted, getting ill, all these types of things. Yeah, that's the way it works. That's why, like, going into your body and learning what it is you want and the human side of things is imperative to your health and to your well-being. And that's not the teaching of non-duality. Non-duality is pointing to that which is beyond the person, but often they go together, because when your body is really tightly contracted with lots of seeking and feeling very uncomfortable, how can there be any space to listen to non-duality?
Yeah, I think I use, or there's try to use non-duality to escape this
Yeah,
boundaries.
totally. Yeah, most people do that as well. There's all these different phases. You fall in love with non-duality, then there is a using it to become, as an identity, to not feel things. As, it just takes it in, the me takes it in, or the person takes it in the same way it does with everything else, a way to suppress itself and a way to escape being itself. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then it realizes that doesn't work, so then it gets back into therapy, and then maybe it hates non-duality. It's like, oh, that's rubbish. And then after years and years of therapy, goes back to non-duality, and it's kind of like it's not that doing the therapy leads you to non-duality, but you kind of have to do both.
yeah,
It's just the natural progression of things. You have to calm down the person.
yeah, and it's really difficult. I mean, because I thought, okay, that's just a playground, more or less. So kind of workshop is a playground to figure out what's going on, more or less. But I did not expect this heavy reaction on a regular
It's
um,
fantastic.
game. Or
Yeah, that's a
what's
really
good?
profound experience when you recognize that it's like an energetic, a massive energetic discomfort in your body. So when I was with Roger, so Roger like pointed a lot of this stuff out to me. He was one of my teachers. He was my partner as well, and I lived with him in Australia. And I remember like we'd be having a discussion, and it would he would say, "You're angry," or something, or notice that you're angry, and then I would be like, "No, I'm not angry," because that's what I intellectually thought, and that's actually what I believed. I really thought that was true, that I wasn't angry. And then he would say, "What does your body feel like?" And when you get over yourself, like, because then you get defensive and you want to be something, but again, you're not conscious of it. But when you get over yourself and you just go into your body in that moment when you're being reactive, then I'd be like, oh my God, I am angry. And
Yeah,
like I often would have the story that I'm peaceful or that I'm not angry. It could be all types of things. Like I was with somebody the other day, and I could see that they were having like very over controlling emotions coming up, like they were really trying to control the environment. But I could also see that they had no consciousness of that. And if they were to self report on that experience, they would report that they were trying to be helpful, I'm pretty sure. But
yeah,
actually, I presume that they were trying to control the environment because they felt afraid. But their narrative would be that they're trying to be helpful.
yeah. But what I recognize is that controlling the emotions, more or less, or the environments, it's really stressful, and it's really
Yeah,
exhausting, more or
yeah,
less, because I did
totally.
not have any control about what's happening.
No, it's totally
And
exhausting. Yeah,
when you're
yeah,
growing up or so, especially probably as man or as woman too, it's you have to be strong and don't behave like that, and just need
yeah,
to try to image that. Is that okay? I've been strong and it didn't hurt me and whatever. But
yeah.
your body says something different.
Yeah, totally. The body never lies. That's what Roger used to say to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
As long as you
But I
pay
didn't.
attention to it, a lot of the time we don't really pay attention to it. But when you really pay attention to the body doesn't lie.
But I recognize when I go for years now to therapy, more or less, to body therapy in the end of the week, that to get all the tensions out.
Mm.
Because I recognize that over a week, more or less, or I have to function somehow in the world, that there's so much tension building up, more or less. And it's quite good to listen to the body and relax and go to therapy and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as soon as going out, more or less, or have to function somewhere in the world, all the pressures comes back, more or less. And
Mm.
that's a quite endless loop. And
Yeah.
especially last year, I was so exhausted because whatever I try, more or less, I'm seemingly landing in the same loop, and I'm so sick of it and tired of it.
Yeah. Yeah. What most probably happens is because of years and years of that stress is that your nervous system is super sensitive now, so you
Yeah,
collapse into it a lot quicker because of the nervous system. And so
yeah,
it is like what you're doing now is it's like you're doing the opposite way around. You're beginning to become conscious of it, and then slowly you'll rearrange your life so that it's relaxing and calming for your nervous system. And then simultaneously listening to non-duality and like that becoming more and more present. You know, as the person becomes more calm, it's it's heard more. Like if you're really contracted, like how can you hear this is it? This is unconditioned love. And it's not the person that hears, but it's like there's too much of the person, there's too much contraction, there's too much seeking.
yeah. Because sometimes real anger coming up because they say, "Oh, this is perfection and everything." I think, what the fuck they're talking about? Because
Yeah,
all my body is in stress level, and I thought that's that's everything. That's it. And
yeah.
I really love to listen to these messages, but sometimes uh, there are two sides of the coin, more or less, because my body is in stress level, and the other
Mm.
side say, "Hey, this is perfection, this is absolute, and whatever." That cannot be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so beautiful that you're realizing all of this. Like this is like it's going deeper and deeper into you. It's really a
Yeah,
gift. Mm.
yeah. I just like to call you and okay,
Yeah,
Rory.
yeah, 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 sure. Thank you for calling in today. I really appreciate your reflection and your feedback, and I'm really
Yeah,
happy for you that that was seen. That is really momentous, I think.
yeah. I mean, it was quite helpful over the last year, more or less, when you talking about to listen to your body and so on. And I
Yeah.
do that for years, more or less, but to focus on the body and direction in the body, what's going on. But sometimes it's quite difficult because when you are in a stress situation, more or less, you ain't have the space to recoil, to sit in the corner and say, "Hey, what's
Mm.
going on?" and so on, because you have to function somehow.
Mm.
And
And when,
sometimes
yeah, yeah, you carry on.
sometimes when you have some space left, more or less, and it's easier to breathe in
Listen,
and say,
yeah,
"Okay," and release the
yeah, yeah,
tension. But
yeah,
quite often you ain't have the space to do that.
yeah, yeah. Um, and also, if you're in stress, like so, if you've got yourself into stress and it's big stress, then it's most probably better to put your attention in attention. So putting your attention in consciousness or something rather than in the body. Because once the body's in a certain amount of stress, if you put attention into it, it will most probably make the stress stronger and it will just take your body down. It will just take you into exhaustion. So there's times when there's particular traumas and like strong traumas or too much stress, it's better to put the attention in consciousness. So putting it in space. Like I know that might sound a bit abstract, but you'll begin to find it because the stress is slightly different from emotions, and you can trigger it, and it's like a slippery slope. It's like trauma. But if it's a
Yeah,
little bit of stress, then you can explore it. But when it gets to a certain level, it's better not to focus on the body.
yeah, that's what I recognize because sometimes I could handle it when it's on a certain level, but it's quite easy on over the top, more or less, and then it's
Mm.
gone, and I have
Mm.
absolutely no control over it.
Yeah, and then you get into like trauma states, and your body goes into exhaustion. It's I know, yeah, yeah. But nice, great to hear from you, Jonas. I
Yeah,
am
yeah,
saying your name right, aren't I, Jonas? I bet
Yeah,
you, yeah.
Johannes, yeah.
Johannes, yeah, sorry, Johannes.
Thank you for
Yeah, pleasure. Have a beautiful evening.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good evening. See
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Bye.